and musicians everywhere. It's Reverend J. Parker here with another episode of Music Theory 101, and this week is part 2 of our look at the harmonic minor scale. Last week we looked at the origin of the scale and we looked at the construction of the scale and intervals. And this week we're going to be looking at the chord construction, the harmonization of the scale in both triads and sevenths, and also looking at some relevant chord progressions you can use to play the scale against. Alright, so it should be a lot of fun. Before we launch into it, just have a look at my website, www.reverendjparker.com. Tons of cool guitar stuff on that site. I won't plug it to death because I'm always doing so, but I do have a look at it. It's a lot of fun, and I've got tons more cool guitar videos all over YouTube, so just have a look if you're interested. Right, without further ado, let's get straight into part 2 of Music Theory 101, the harmonic minor scale. So let's just stick with our key of A minor just to make things nice and simple. And once again, we're going to refer back to our parent C major scale. So one more time, chords in the key of C major are C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor and B diminished. C again. Therefore, the chords in the A natural minor scale, which is after all just a mode of the C major scale, will be exactly the same. The only difference will be we'll be starting on the chord of A minor instead of the chord of C. So in that case, chords in the key of A natural minor will be A minor, B diminished, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major and A minor. So when we talk about the construction of the chords, obviously if there's only one note of a difference between all the chords in the key of C and A natural minor and A harmonic minor, that being the G sharp note, all the chords that used to contain a G natural note, a regular G note, will now contain a G sharp note. So you can see that some of the chords will be affected while some of them will remain the same. So let's just go ahead and start harmonizing our A harmonic minor scale and see what comes up. Starting on the root of the scale, which is A, we've got the note of A, and then if we take a third above that, it's C, and then a fifth above that, it would be E, and that will give us the notes of A, C and E, which is an A minor triad. So you can clearly see that's just the same as the chord we got in natural minor because we don't have a G note, still A minor. We go to the second degree of the scale, which is B, we have B, and then D, and then F. Now, once again, that's going to remain the same because it does not contain a G note, B, D and F being B diminished. Now the next chord would be altered. It used to be these notes, C, E, G, which was a C major triad, but now of course we're raising the G up to G sharp, so we'll get this, have a listen, which is C, E, G sharp. And for those of you that don't know what this chord is called, it's called C augmented because it is a C major triad with a sharpened or augmented fifth. So it's called C augmented. Sometimes it's written like this, C with a plus symbol after it. That's what augmented is. Going to the next degree of the scale, which starts on D, we have D, F and A. Now once again that has stayed the same because it doesn't contain our G note, so that's still D minor. Right, now here's the big, important and crucial change. The chord that we used to have at this point was E, G and B, which is the chord of E minor. Now clearly that G is going to go up to G sharp, in which case we're going to have this, which hopefully you'll be able to tell has changed the quality of the chord from minor to major, and we'll be coming back to that in just a bit because that's a very important and crucial change. So the fifth chord of the key is now a major triad. Going to the sixth chord, starting on the note of F. Used to be F, A, C, which is F major, and it's still F, A, C, F major because it doesn't contain the G note. Now of course the last chord, that will change because it used to be G, B and D, which was a G major chord, but now the root of the chord isn't even G, it's G sharp, and now we've got G sharp, B and D, which again, if you don't know, is another triad. It's a diminished triad. It's G sharp diminished triad, G sharp, B and D. And then we're back to A minor. So here's the complete harmonized scale of A harmonic minor in triads. We have A minor, then B diminished, and then C augmented, D minor, E major, F major, and then G sharp diminished. I can only play it right. There we go. And then back to A minor. Alright, so that's fairly interesting. So let's think about the chords which have changed. We've got some chords have stayed the same and some chords have changed. So the chords that have stayed the same, A minor has stayed the same, B diminished has stayed the same, D minor is still the same, and F major is the same. However, all the other chords have changed. So C major has changed to C augmented, the really important change, E minor has changed to E major, and the last chord, the G triad, has changed to G sharp diminished triad. Okay, so now we've surveyed the triads, let's go back to looking at our harmonic progression, our 5-1 cadence, and see what these changes have done to our cadential system. So if you recall, our 5-1 cadence in the key of C major would be G, or G7, resolving to C. Very strong and complete sounding. However, the same cadence in natural minor, A natural minor, is very weak sounding, because it's E minor resolving to A minor, which just sounds rather wishy-washy and namby-pamby, I think you'll agree. But with the introduction of the harmonic minor scale, we have caused the E minor triad to change and become an E major triad. Now let's listen to the sound of the cadence now. 5-1 in A harmonic minor. Now, I think you'll agree with me, that sounds very strong and declaratory now, and it sounds very complete and satisfying, the resolution from the 5 chord to the 1. Alright, so that really explains the whole raison d'etre for the harmonic minor scale, and now I think you can see where it comes from. We now get perfect cadences in minor keys, which are just as strong as the perfect cadences in major keys. Alright, we're going to do one more thing about chords and harmony, and that's going to start expanding the chords beyond their basic triads into sevenths, and this is where things get very interesting. So now let's expand our basic triads into chord scale sevenths and see what we get. If we take the first chord of the key and we expand it to a seventh chord, it will be A, C, E, and rather bizarrely, G sharp. A, C, E, G sharp. Now this chord has got a very unusual name. It is called minor major 7. So this would be A minor major 7. Now at this point I get a lot of students going, whoa, 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 A minor major 7? How can that possibly be? How can it be minor and major at the same time? Well, it isn't minor and major at the same time. It is an A minor triad with the addition of, if we can reach it, a major 7th interval. So the triad is minor, but the interval added at the top is a major 7 interval. So that hence its name, minor major 7. And it has a particularly dark and spooky sound, the major 7 interval creating somewhat of a dissonance with the root. Quite pleasant when you get used to it though. The next chord is these notes, B, D, F and A. Alright, now that is a B half diminished or B minor 7 flat 5 chord, and that's actually the same chord as you would get in an A natural minor scale. Now the next chord used to be C, E, G, B, C major 7, but we know that any chord that used to contain G is now going to contain G sharp, and that's going to be this chord. Again, rather dark and dissonant sounding chord. You would describe this chord as either C major 7 sharp 5, which it just describes what it is, a C major 7th chord with a sharp 5, or alternatively it's called C major 7 augmented. C major 7 augmented. It can also be described as, get this, E/C. Now that belongs to slash chord nomenclature, which I'm not going to get into today, but fundamentally that's what it is. It's an E triad with a C in the bass. Okay, so that deals with chord 3, our C major 7 sharp 5 chord. Chord 4 is D minor 7, D, F, A and C. And then our interesting chord, another change chord, used to be E, G, B, D, which is E minor 7 now, raising up the G to G sharp, has made it into E dominant 7th. So once again strengthening the cadential 5-to-1 chord progression. Moving on again to chord 6. Was F, A, C, E, F major 7, it's still that, still F, A, C, E, no change there. And then the last chord is quite important and interesting, as we'll be seeing in another episode. It is G sharp, B, D and F, and this chord is G sharp diminished seventh. Now this is an important and interesting chord, and I'll be devoting a whole episode of Music Theory 101 just to this chord. But suffice it to say for just now that this is the first time that this chord has come up, because diminished seventh chords do not occur in major scale harmony. The first time you come across it is in harmonic minor, and it is a very important chord which facilitated a great deal of harmonic development in music, which we'll see in a subsequent episode. Alright, so that's an entire harmonized scale of A harmonic minor expanded out to chord scale 7. So just to recap, chord 1, A minor major 7, chord 2, B minor 7 flat 5, chord 3, C major 7 sharp 5, chord 4 is D minor 7, chord 5 is E dominant 7th, chord 6 is F major 7, and then chord 7 is G sharp diminished 7th, and that is the harmonized chord scale. Alright, now for the last bit of this monstrous theory fest, I'm just going to give you a few chord progressions that you can start leveraging your harmonic minor scales against, so you can actually get a flavour of how this scale really sounds in a musical context. Now it's fairly simple to create harmonic minor chord progressions. All we need to do is take some chords from the key that have been generated by the scale and arrange them in a little order. So we know from major scale harmony that one of the most common and strong sounding chord progressions in major keys is the chord progression 1, 4 and 5. So in the key of C, for instance, it would be C, F and G. In the key of A minor, A harmonic minor, it's A minor, D minor and E. So I'm just going to press my keyboard into service here for a little bit of cheesy bossa nova moment, just so you can have a listen to the harmonic context of playing these chords in a progression. So here we go, very cheesy, but I'm sure you get the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. So that was just this chord sequence: A minor, D minor, E, and back to A minor at the end. So a very typical 1, 4, 5 chord progression. So that's very, very useful, and you hear that all over the place. Here's another one which is very common, especially in jazz, and that's called a 2-5-1, minor 2-5-1. Now minor 2-5-1 in this key would be B minor 7 flat 5, then E7, and then just A minor. And I'm drawing these chords from the harmonized 7th scale, so not triads, but i.e. the harmonized 7ths we discussed earlier on. So listen one more time: B minor 7 flat 5, that'll be the 2 chord, and then E7, that's our 5 chord, and then A minor, which is clearly the 1. So again, shoving on my little cheesy bossa nova background, let's see if I can get around these chords. Not much of a keyboard player, so this may be a challenge. Let's try. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, that's something you hear in jazz all the time. Jazz is constructed primarily out of 2-5-1 progressions. Certainly many standards are nothing but collections of 2-5-1 chord progressions, and minor 2-5-1 is incredibly common, and it is derived from harmonic minor harmony. And here's one last chord progression to try that features a mode of the scale. Now we're not going to be discussing modes of harmonic minor today, but there is a particular mode which is used often and has a strong sound, and it is called, at the risk of blinding you with science, it's called Phrygian dominant, which is mode 5 of harmonic minor. Now to create that sort of sound harmonically through the chords, what we need to do is we need to emphasize the 5th chord of the key, which is E. So here's a suggestion for a E Phrygian dominant chord progression. Just need E major, and then F major, and then D minor, and then back to E. And we could also expand this to 7th and it would work quite nicely. We could have E7th, and we could have F major 7, and we could have D minor 7, and we could have E7. Alright, so let's stick our cheesy bossa background on one more time and just demonstrate how that would sound. 1, 2, 3, 4. so I think you can see that those chord progressions all sound quite interesting and musical, and if you attempt to play the harmonic minor scale over the top of these, a harmonic minor of course, you'll see that it really does work incredibly well. And the great thing about the harmonic minor scale is it can sound very classical, it can sound quite jazzy over minor 251s, it can also sound extremely metal. Just think of guitar players like Yngwie J. Malmsteen and the whole neoclassical movement of the 1980s, driven primarily by harmonic minor harmony found in the Baroque period of classical music. Alright, well, I think that just about does the theory lesson for today. We're just going to do the wrap up now. Okay, well that concludes today's lesson. Quite a lot of information in this lesson I know, and quite a lot of fairly serious academic stuff going on there, but it really is just fairly straightforward when you get right down to the bottom of it. One of the things I really encourage you to do, don't just watch the video and take my word for it showing you little things on the keyboard. Grab your guitar, play through the chords, play through the scales, confirm with yourself that everything which I've said to you makes sense to you. And the last thing that you absolutely must do is you must then go and apply these ideas in real music, because if you don't, it will just remain a piece of abstract theory that you have heard about but you've got no idea how to actually use in real music. So the moral of the story is you must leverage every piece of theory you learn in real music, and that's how you turn all this abstract, abstruse, technical, theoretical knowledge into something you can actually use. Alright, before we sign off, just encourage you once again to have a look at the website. You can visit me on SoundCloud at Rowan-Parker, lots of backing tracks there you can play along to and download. I'm on Facebook page you can like if you like. I'm on Twitter, though I barely use that very much, and of course the YouTube channel is chock-a-block of cool guitar videos, so please like and subscribe. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'll check you out next week for another episode of Music Theory 101, where we're going to be going into great detail the diminished seventh chord and a concept called the diminished gateway. So until then, see you again, farewell.